Now, why haven't we tried smashing the toy with a sledgehammer or melting it down? You don't have any volcanoes nearby?
Demon! I will kill you as many times as I have to.
By the way, if you find reading to be intimidating and this 600-page book looks like it's a lot, the monkey is only this small portion in the middle. Now, I've read the entire book because I figured I might as well, since I only have a few weeks to have it checked out before I have to return this to the library. They also have the source material for The Mist in here, if any of you are curious about comparing the two.
Everything okay up there?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. Once again, I am doing a video on the source material of an upcoming feature film adaptation. I know the timing is a bit all over the place, but you have to check out the library books when they are available, just in case someone else checks out the only copy, and then you find yourself stuck looking for a workaround so that you will be able to make your video on time and publish it before opening weekend. Already this year, I've done a video about Rule, which is the source material for Marked Men, which is set to have a limited theatrical release in January, and then a VOD release at some point afterwards. And I've also more recently published a video on The Housemaid, which is currently filming with a theatrical release date in December of this year. But today, I'm going to be talking about The Monkey, which is a short story written by Stephen King, and it is also the source material for an upcoming film adaptation, which is set to release on February 21st. The Monkey film is directed by Osgood Perkins, who is also doing the screenplay. The short story was first published in 1980, and nowadays you can find it in Skeleton Crew, which is the name of a collection of several of Stephen King's short stories, one of which is The Monkey. I'm intrigued by the idea of The Monkey being adapted because since I began doing these video duologies where I do one video on the source material before an adaptation is released, and then another about the film itself whenever that gets released, this is the first time where it's a short story as opposed to a full novel. Typically, when a novel is adapted, you will see a lot of trimming and consolidating because films have to abide by things like a runtime, and also there are just other differences between the two mediums. But when you are adapting a short story like this one, in theory, there's a lot more room to take creative liberties because in all likelihood, you will need to expand the narrative to better work as a feature. Before we talk about the narrative of this short story, I will introduce the characters. We have Hal Shelburne, who is married to his wife Terry, and they have a 12-year-old son named Dennis, as well as a 9-year-old son who is referred to as Petey. Hal has a brother named Bill, who is married to a woman named Colette. In the short story, Bill is 2 years older than Hal, but in the film adaptation, Theo James is playing both Hal and Bill, so it would seem that that is an alteration they've made to make these two characters twins. I'll be interested in seeing if there's something in the narrative that necessitates them being twins, or maybe some sort of symbolism wrapped up in that concept. Hal and Bill's mother is played by Tatiana Maslany in the film, and after she dies, they were raised by their Uncle Bill and Aunt Ida. The short story goes back and forth between present day, where Hal is an adult, to memories from his childhood when he previously encountered the monkey. The monkey toy is described as having a creepy grin and eyes that feel like they're looking at you no matter where you are in the room. The monkey also has symbols in its hands, and if the monkey crashes these symbols together, someone or something will die.
No, 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 no!
In the short story, it's usually people, but there are also mentions of a time when Aunt Ida's cat was hit by a car and the family dog Daisy died from a violent brain hemorrhage, and these deaths were said to be caused by the toy monkey. I really hope that they won't include those in the film, or if they do, that they will show little to nothing of them, because the way those incidents are described in the short story, if I have to see something that is as graphic as that to a cat or a dog or both, I'm going to be so distressed that in all likelihood, it will just end up tarnishing my enjoyment of the film overall. So in all likelihood, I will be checking doesthedogdie.com before I watch this film adaptation, because with source material like this, I need to prepare myself. The short story jumps back and forth between the present and past portions of Hal's life, but to try to make this less confusing for anyone watching this, I'm going to rearrange things to mostly tell you the things that the story shares in sequential order. The flashbacks are not presented in sequential order when Hal is sharing those memories with the reader of the story. Also, before I go through that timeline storyline of Hal versus the monkey, I will add that they don't ever really provide a definitive backstory for the monkey. There is some speculation about what the monkey might be or how it came to be this evil, malevolent thing, but I definitely think that there is room for Osgood Perkins to take creative liberties with the origins of the monkey if he even wants to have an explanation of what it is or where it came from. It may very well be that the monkey is just an evil object and you don't get those answers in the film's narrative. But now let's go through the events of the short story sequentially. Hal was 4 years old and his brother Bill was 6 when Hal first found the toy monkey. Oftentimes, throughout the many encounters he has with the monkey, Hal experiences a sickening feeling of fear and dread whenever the monkey is around or when the monkey is being active, and Hal seems to be able to hear the monkey taunting him in his mind. The first time the monkey went off, as it was banging the cymbals together, that banging of the cymbals coincided with an incident involving his babysitter, Bela. Bela and her friend Sally were shot dead in an incident involving Bela's boyfriend Leonard. There was some sort of argument over who was going to go out and pick up an order of Chinese food. Bill was the one to find the monkey for the second time during their childhood. Hal had thought that he should get rid of the monkey, but he was also a child who got easily distracted. The monkey ended up sitting on Bill's shelf in their room, and it stayed there for nearly 2 years without incident. One day, Hal is home alone, and the monkey goes off, and Hal is terrified. He can hear the monkey taunting him in his mind, and he's wondering who the monkey's going to get this time. Will it be Hal himself? Will it be one of his loved ones? Hal's mother comes home, so she's still alive. And then Bill comes home alive, but he's very unwell because, as it turns out, he saw his friend Charlie Silverman die by being hit by a car that was driven by a drunk driver. Following this incident, Hal hides the monkey in the back closet, and Bill doesn't even notice that Hal had moved it off of Bill's shelf. Sometime after that, Hal comes home, and the monkey is back on the shelf, and it's almost as if the monkey puts him into a trance to prompt him to turn the key that winds the monkey up and make the cymbals crash. On that same day, they get the news that their mother has died of a brain embolism in the middle of the afternoon while she was at work standing at the water cooler. Hal harbors a lot of guilt and blames himself for the death of their mother as a result of this. The short story is in Hal's POV, and there isn't a lot of material of him interacting with Bill, so I will be interested to see if they explore that relationship more in the film adaptation. When Uncle Will and Aunt Ida came for Hal and Bill's mother's funeral, Aunt Ida stayed for an extra 2 weeks to help get their mother's affairs in order and help the boys to pack up to move in with the pair of them. While packing up boxes of things that they would be getting rid of, Hal put the monkey in one of those boxes, so it got loaded up onto a truck that was hauling all of those things to be taken away. A few months after Hal and Bill moved in, Aunt Ida sent Hal up to the attic to get the Christmas decorations, and Hal was horrified to discover that the monkey was up there. During the present part of the story, Hal's son Petey had asked him if they should tape cotton over the cymbals, and Hal says that that doesn't work because he had tried that or something similar to it, and that was what had caused the family dog, Daisy, to die at Uncle Will and Aunt Ida's home. It's not specified whether the dog thing happened before or after the Johnny McCabe thing, since not all of the flashbacks are presented in sequential order, but I will guess that the dog thing happened before the Johnny McCabe thing. So Johnny McCabe was Hal's best friend. Uncle Will and Aunt Ida had a well dug and installed onto their property, but the well had dried up during a summer season. That summer was when the monkey went off with the cymbals, and as a result of that, Johnny McCabe fell and broke his neck while he was climbing up the treehouse. That was something Johnny and Hal had done loads of times. Hal threw the monkey down the dry well, and then he heard the monkey's cymbals begin to beat. He could hear that this was happening because the well was dried up, and that was why Aunt Ida's cat was hit by a car. Decades go by, seemingly without incident, or if the monkey is going off during that period, whomever or whatever is the victim isn't anyone that Hal is aware of. This is when we reach the present day portion of the storyline, although it's still a period piece for us as readers because the story was published in 1980. We will see if the film is also set in 1980. It might end up being a period piece. After all, Longlegs was a period piece. Hal's older son Dennis, the 12-year-old, had found the toy monkey in the attic. Hal is terrified because he knows it's the same monkey he had all of those horrific experiences with in his childhood. Hal's younger son Petey, the 9-year-old, also seems to immediately have a bad feeling about the monkey, although it's his first time encountering this monkey toy. It's interesting to note that across both generations, it's the younger brother that is more sensitive, aware and in tune with the fact that this supernatural monkey is evil and powerful. Dennis moves to reach towards the wind-up key in the monkey's back, but Hal yells at him not to do that. Hal and the rest of his family briefly visit the house that he grew up in, the one that belonged to his aunt and uncle. It's there that they are reunited with Hal's older brother Bill and his wife Colette. Uncle Will had died 6 years prior, and Aunt Ida had died last week from a stroke, hence the need to visit their home. While there, Hal goes to check on the old well where he had thrown away the monkey toy. The well is working again, as in it's not dried up anymore, so all he sees when he looks down into it is his own reflection on the surface of the water. Hal has a difficult relationship with Dennis and gets along better with Petey. His wife Terry had asked Hal to talk to Dennis about issues with the green stuff. You know what I mean. La ganja estranja. But Hal hadn't done that yet. They're still at Hal's aunt and uncle's house, and they observe that Petey has the monkey. It didn't work with Dennis, which is why he gave it to Petey, but Hal lashes out and warns Petey not to play with it. Dennis snidely refers to his father Hal as a friggin' schizophrenic. I'm using the air quotes just so you know that that's Stephen King's verbiage and not mine. And Hal proceeds to snatch Dennis up. He brings him to a different room where he proceeds to aggressively shake him and repeatedly shove him into a door, and he's yelling at him. There's this implication that he's been abusive to his son in the past, and it's the type of period-typical abuse where the parent thinks he's just parenting, but we as the audience in the 21st century have the gift of hindsight, and we go, no, that's abuse, and your generation is the reason why so many millennial and Gen Z parents use the concept of gentle parenting. But anyway, Dennis lashes out over the family having had to move recently because Hal had gotten laid off from his job. Hal tells Dennis off for his attitude and disrespect, but then he also hugs his son and tells him that he loves him. Hal also tells Dennis that when the family returns home, Hal is going to search Dennis's room 2 or 3 days after their return, so if there's anything in there that he doesn't want to be found, Dennis needs to get rid of it before then. Essentially, it's his way of telling his son that we know you've got La Ganja Estranja in your room, so get rid of that on your own terms, and then you won't be disciplined for having something that you, a 12-year-old, should not have in your possession. Not long after this, Hal's wife Terry scolds Hal for his approach to parenting. She doesn't think that this sort of physical aggression is productive. The way that things are framed in the story, it seems as though Hal has a lot of unresolved trauma because of the monkey, and everything has been reignited because the monkey toy has come back. So instead of having a rational adult conversation with his wife, Hal makes a really ugly comment to her about how she should just take a Valium. He knows right away that it wasn't the right thing to say, but he doesn't apologize for it either. Sometime after this, when the family has returned home, Hal wakes up and Terry and Dennis are not home because they just went shopping together. So it's just him and Petey. Petey admits to his father that he doesn't like the monkey, and he felt like the monkey was trying to make Petey come over and wind the key, and the monkey was taunting him that they should play, which would cause Hal to never wake up. Hal tells Petey to grab a flight bag and to quickly go outside and find 3 or 4 good-sized rocks, put them in the bag, and they will go for a drive to get rid of the monkey at Uncle Will and Aunt Ida's place. While Pete is outside, Hal is watching him from the bathroom window, and he observes that a car is coming around the corner too quickly. The monkey tries to crash its cymbals together, but Hal instinctively drops his hand to keep the cymbals from being able to touch each other, and when he does this, he feels a sense of rage in the air. Petey is almost hit by the car, but survives unscathed and makes it back with the bag of rocks. They pack the monkey into that bag, and when they hear a faint jing when one of the cymbals hits one of the rocks, this scares them, and they have a sense that something has changed because of that sound. And what they realize is that there had been a fly buzzing around inside the house, but now the fly is dead on the windowsill. During the drive to Uncle Will and Aunt Ida's place, Hal tells Petey an abbreviated version of his childhood experiences with the monkey. They get to the property and go to the lake where Uncle Will's rowboat is located. Hal has Petey stay on the shore while Hal is going to take the bag containing the rocks and the monkey and row it towards the deepest part of Crystal Lake, and that is where he will drop it. This part of the lake is supposed to be somewhere around 100 feet deep. While Hal is rowing, the lake becomes a frenzy of waves, there's a dark cloud that looms overhead, and they are also able to see a shadowy shape moving in the water towards the boat. The monkey's cymbals are muffled by the bag, but Hal can hear them beginning to beat. Hal reaches the destination and he throws the bag overboard, and he seems to still be able to hear the cymbals beating, but the black water seems to clear up, and the stormy conditions begin to dissipate somewhat. But as Hal is trying to make his way back, the boat begins to spring a leak and gradually fall apart. The wooden boards are shrinking and nails are breaking. The wind has returned, and it's as if the wind is trying to slow the boat down or pull Hal back towards the middle of the lake. But Hal has this sense that the monkey is gone for good this time, and it will not be returning to haunt him or his children. The boat eventually falls apart enough that Hal is going to have to swim the remainder of the distance, and he's nervous about doing this because he's never really been the strongest swimmer, but he is determined to survive and moreover to not drown in front of his son. The way that I interpreted this thought is that he doesn't want to become a traumatic event that will haunt his son for the rest of his life. Hal successfully reaches the shore and Petey is relieved. They hug one another. Petey asks if the monkey is gone, and Hal says he believes so. Petey tells Hal that the boat just seemed to fall apart all around Hal. They both note how the large dark cloud that had just been over the lake is now gone. Hal has a brief thought about unsuspecting people coming to the lake to try to have fun and coming across the monkey and the bad things that could happen to them as a result. But he resolves to put that out of his mind because ultimately that's just a hypothetical. So he and Petey leave. The story ends with a brief write-up that's been published in some sort of local news publication. It reports on the fact that hundreds of dead fish, and they're all different types of fish, have been found floating belly up in Crystal Lake. Moreover, Fish and Game authorities are mystified by this. Now, if you want to take the story as a very literal concept, you have a mysterious, scary object of unknown origin, an origin that may or may not be explained in the film adaptation, with seemingly no definitive way of defeating or destroying it, unless there ends up being a way to defeat or destroy it in the film adaptation. If you look at the story as something more symbolic, you can see these glimpses of deeper meaning to do with trying to break the cycle as a parent. Hal felt haunted by the death of his mother, but also by a whole lot of trauma by the many deaths the monkey caused. And then as an adult, a key factor of his victory is that he resolves that he will not be a traumatic parental death that will haunt his son. The monkey could be an evil supernatural object, or the monkey could be a symbol of trauma that you don't realize you have until it flares up in your adult life as a parent, and you have to confront and deal with that trauma, or else it is going to get to your children. To me, that's a concept that if you keep it intact, it has the potential to make a monkey film appeal to more viewers because it can work on more than one layer depending on what sort of story certain viewers prefer to connect with. You could have a straight up haunted object story, or you could have an emotionally compelling story about confronting your own childhood trauma and not letting it impact your children. But also some viewers will enjoy both of those concepts simultaneously. But beyond that, Osgood Perkins could also take the concept and go in a completely different direction. Maybe he'll add his own ideas while expanding this short story into a full feature film length narrative. Either way, I'm definitely intrigued to see what he's come up with, and we will definitely have to revisit this discussion after the film is released in cinemas.